Welcome everybody. This is your pal, good old CHH here. I've got an awesome dude with me today, and if you're an Elm Street fan, you are in luck. And if you're not an Elm Street fan, I can't help that you don't have taste. But I've got the one and only Chris, aka Cosplay Chris. Dude, what is going on? Thank you for being here.
Christian, thank you so much for having me, man. I was gonna say before we started, I've been binge watching your videos for like 3 months now, and I'm also very honored to have finally found someone who appreciates Freddy's dead like I appreciate it. Because I have some stuff to show you.
Dude, you know, it's crazy. Can you, first off, I want to talk about that, but can you kind of tell people that may not know who you are about you and what you do and your YouTube channel and all the things that you're involved in?
Yeah, man, sure. Like you said, I go by Cosplay Chris on YouTube. I also just started another YouTube channel just called Chris Stanley. So like for nearly 9 years, I've had the main channel, which was like, cosplay builds, prop building, movie reviews, collectible reviews. And now I feel it's kind of time to just keep them separate, keep the build videos from the talkie videos. So
Right.
have started a second channel. It's been going for 3 weeks now. So slowly getting there. Like it's scary starting a new channel again because you know how it is, man. Like it's a grind. It's a tough grind. But yeah, I cut my teeth into prop buildings back when I was like 12, 13 years old, making Freddy gloves from like baked bean cans, Diet Coke cans, and like old ladies' floral gardening gloves and stuff like that. And then I got into like the whole sculpting, molding, casting side, and then cosplay and incorporating all those elements into it. And then, like 3D printing. And yeah, like what you see behind you, some of the stuff I have included in build videos, like the bone claw from New Nightmare that I'll show you in a bit. Just tutorials and like just doing it on the cheap too. Like you don't have to break the bank when it's painting something or constructing something. Like my thing is my fans know me for is shoe polish and using shoe polish to weather things and stain things, and you'd be surprised. Like it goes a long way, man. So that's my thing. And but also just more getting into the horror side with my content because like you, like born, raised like a horror nut, like my mom got me into Freddy and I think she's like, what have I done? But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. Like I get a Jonesing out of it. And that's when I found your channel. I just recommended physical media for one of the early Elm Streets when you started that series. And I'm like, I love this guy. This guy gets it. And there's something just so, and like I've got all the Aussie VHSs to show you here. There's just something just so charming about old school horror physical media.
Yeah. And it's like I can already tell you're a humble guy, but I'll tell the people you've got a really big channel, your Cosplay Chris channel. It's big. And dude, the world is so bizarre because you telling me you found my channel. It was so weird because literally days before you commented on that video, and I remember it because I love collecting busts. Like I've got Jason busts, I got, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get not only Freddy busts, but quite frankly, really good Freddy busts. It just is, right? There's some
Yeah.
guys that there's
It's
some guys.
hard, man. Like I've got like obviously this is the Freddy's Dead one that I offer. So he's just a spare that I had some spare resin, so I cast him up. So this was done digitally. I was fortunate enough to come into contact with a live cast of Robert Englund from Elm Street 4, so like 88.
Yeah.
I had eyes sculpted into it, like open eyes, because his eyes were shut. Took a scan of it, and we then took that file, sent it to Sean Dabbs, who's a very talented 3D artist. Because like I used to sculpt, but I didn't keep it up. You got to keep flexing that muscle.
Uh-huh.
And Sean is a brilliant digital sculptor, and I gave him all the reference for that. And then him and I have also, this is a bronze one, but this is the part one I did
Right.
in, so this is going to James and Chelsea from Dead Meat, the Dead Meat channel. So this is just a little present for them. They got married, and I just did a bronze version of the part one.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah, man, like incorporating old school sculpture, digital sculpture. But yeah, it can be very hard to come across a good Freddy bust. But I think also it's so subjective because there's so many looks of Freddy. It's totally subjective, man. So like I love the part 1 and part 6 because they're so at opposite ends of the
Right.
spectrum, with like how creepy Robert looked in the first one to how silly he looks in Freddy's
Yeah.
Dead. But I love the silliness.
Yeah.
Um,
We're
like
gonna
I
get
said, you
there.
get it.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna get there. I want to talk about that, but like just to kind of give people the insight to how we got to this moment.
Hmm.
I was at the moment I was like, I need another Freddy bust. Now, my personal favorite look is, and my favorite Elm Street is Freddy's Revenge. I think
Yeah.
that's the devil. You know, that's not to me,
It
that's
is.
not even Freddy. That's the devil in that movie, right? And there was this bust I was looking at, and then there's always been a part of me that was like, it's like, why can't I even find a Dream Child or a Freddy's Dead bust? And for some reason, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna YouTube it. Maybe somebody's got one. And then lo and behold, I found your video. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy's got a Freddy's Dead bust. And then I watched the video and saw what it was and everything. And then literally a few days later, that's when you commented on that video of mine. And it was just
Uh,
so, and then I knew your name because I was like, I just watched this guy. What is he doing watching my videos? So it was very humbling, but it was really cool.
yeah.
And like I said, for people listening, this guy gains nothing by coming on my channel. He's got a really big channel, but like I'm humbled that you tell me you were watching my videos, right? Because I'm a kid from Louisiana, right? This 30-year-old punk that loves Elm Street, and here you are watching my videos. It's amazing the way the internet works. And it's just like, before we look at your stuff, I got to talk to you. I always love picking the brain of Elm Street fans, right?
Mm.
Off the bat, just tell me, because I can tell a lot about a person by their favorite Elm Street.
Yeah.
What is your favorite?
Part 1. I've said in my videos before where I've ranked them,
Right.
it goes between 1 and 3, but I think one was just lightning in a bottle. The look of Freddy was lightning in a bottle. It was just so that movie was so gritty. Like part 2 is gritty as well. Like I love 1, 2, and 3. Like they're like the proper Elm Streets where I'm like, they have so much substance, and I'm so glad that part 2 is like renaissance, and Mark Patton has kind of somewhat come back into the limelight, and he's doing his thing, and he hasn't completely shunned it. And like, poor guy, like he's had a bit of a tough run.
It's been rough. Yeah.
But yeah, part 1, dude, like it's hard to explain. It's I saw all of the Elm Streets in reverse. So Freddy's Dead was the first Elm Street I ever watched. My dad taped half of it when it was on late at night, and he goes, "We're only going to tape half because I think it's too scary for you." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." So I watched it right up until before Carlos's head explodes, and I'm like that big, and I'm like, "That's the scariest thing I've ever seen." Well, it was only going to get worse because the last one that I watched was part 1. I'm like, what the hell? Like Freddy's Dead was an SNL skit compared to what I just watched. And the look of Freddy, like he barely spoke. He's hidden in the shadows.
Uh-huh.
And he was just cruel. That's what I love about Freddy. He's just cruel.
Right.
So part 1, man. What about you? What's your favorite?
Without question, it's interesting I've told this story 1,000 times, but I love telling it. I'm not a lifelong horror fan, which sometimes throws people off, but I never would lie about it, right? I got into horror in 2008 and 9. And what happened was, there's these stores in America called Spirit Halloween. I don't know if you guys have those there. I'm sure
I
you know
have.
about
I
it.
recently went to Canada a few months ago, and I tried to find a Spirit Halloween. Like it's like legend folklore over here about Spirit Halloween, because we don't have stores like that here. Like Halloween's getting bigger here, but not that big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what they are is they wherever there are abandoned I say abandoned, like abandoned brick and mortar places, or places that they're vacant. These Spirit Halloween stores, they come in around August, September, and people just go nuts. They buy, it's like, it's insane. It's insanity. You'd love it, right? And
Yeah.
my brother took me there one day, and I was just enamored by everything. And of course, you can't live on this planet without knowing the name Freddy, Michael, but I never really watched the movies. And so I just was so enamored by what I saw. And the next day, I was a senior. I remember I was a senior in high school, and the next day my mom used to work right next to a Blockbuster. And
Mm.
I was like, Mom, do me a favor. Can you stop by Blockbuster and get a Nightmare on Elm Street for me? I want to watch this movie. She comes back, Chris. She says, Christian, I'm sorry. They were all rented out of part one. I got the second one. Is that fine? That movie. And I watched part two for the first time. And it changed me. I swear to God,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
movie is, and when, to sum it up, Robert Russler described in the theater, right?
Mm.
When Freddy bursts out of Jesse, he said the audience was in shock. They didn't scream. Like they were literally in shock at what was happening.
Mm.
That was me. I was sitting up in my bed just like this. It terrified me. And I was, that's always going to be my Freddy, right?
Yeah,
So part two is my favorite. It's just,
yeah.
that's my new nightmare in a sense. Because you
Mm.
know how, what I mean by that is this, you know how in New Nightmare, that's this other Freddy. This is this entity, right? That's alive now because the movies have stopped. This is
Yep.
my own mythology, right?
Mm.
That's not Freddy in part two. That is the devil or something that has said, screw these rules. I'm going rogue. I'm
Yeah.
possessing this kid. That's my new nightmare. I love part two with a passion. I
Mm.
love that movie so much. That's my favorite.
Yeah, dude.
But
It's a good choice. Like it's I remember when I first watched it and it was so different from the others. And like I obviously when I was young, I never looked into the undertones and they obviously don't bother me. I'm like, I think
sure.
that's what sets it apart, and I think it stands on its own. But yeah, that makeup that Kevin Yeager did, the red contact lenses that Robert wears, he is the fucking devil. Like,
He is.
and just how shiny he is, the voice. Yeah, like I've heard a few people say like that's my Freddy. Like it between one and two, he's cruel, and then by three, he's still cruel, but you're starting to go into that MTV version of Freddy that we ultimately got in four. That was like final form, peak MTV, and then it just got really goofy and clowny from there on. But yeah, part one and two, like it's hard because, like I said, I go between one and three, but then also two. But when it comes to the makeup, it's I do say part one, but then also part one and part two tie pretty well. Just Robert's facial expressions, his eyes, those eyes in part two, how they're sunk,
Mm.
yeah, they're sunken into his skull and they're just piercing, man. But yeah, part two is great. I absolutely love it. But it's cool that that was the first one you saw because that's still a pretty full on movie compared to one. Like they're both full on. But like after that, did you watch part one after that?
Part one after that, then three. Then I fell in love with Dokken, right? And I love hair. Like I'm so into hair metal, and I got so into Dokken after that. Like I'm into Lynch. I love Lynch Mob. I found that Up from the Ashes solo record that Don did after Dokken broke up, and like
Yep.
I'm like a Dokken. I have a PhD in Dokken now, right? Because of that movie, and I'm sure we'll talk about it because I saw your collect. I want to stop because I want to start your collection because
Yeah,
once you
man.
bring stuff up, we can branch off into stuff. But if you saw the physical media episodes I did, right,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I'm looking behind you, you obviously have a collection. So, and these are Australian VHS tapes, and I can see they're all clamshells. Is that how you guys had VHSs back then? Like they didn't. It wasn't those little plastic cases like we had. It was clamshells.
Yeah, man. So first of all, if I'm looking this way, it's because I can see you on my laptop here, but my DSLR's here, and I feel so strange just looking at a
You-
DSLR instead of your
You're
face.
fine.
So I'm
You're
sorry if
fine.
I'm darting.
You're fine.
So usually you guys are used to this, yeah?
Yes.
So this was signed by Ricky Dean Logan, who played Carlos.
Mhm.
So I actually bought this at Monster Palooza 2017. I didn't know he was a guest there. I was there to see Robert. I saw Ricky Dean Logan, and I was like, oh my god, like because Freddy's Dead was the first film I watched, and Carlos's death was like peak for me then. And I just wanted to meet him and Back to the Future. So I quickly went and bought this at a vendor. I think it was like $20, and then he signed it.
That's
But yeah,
amazing.
so we do clamshells, man. Now part one is one of the rarest VHSs you can get. This particular one there, this is from 85. We didn't get Elm Street until 85, and it came out on VHS in 85. And what makes it so rare is it has the interchangeable cover. So whoever the clerk was at the time could choose between the bloody version, which you see here, or they could flip it
Right.
over and all the blood was gone. And also, it's the graphic uncut version because back in the 80s, we were wussies in Australia when it came to VHSs. Like Hellraiser 2 was banned in Queensland, which is the state above me. I'm in New South Wales. Hellraiser 2 was banned in Queensland for a while. This had a very limited release. So I found this on eBay, and I think in USD it cost me 200 USD. So it goes for a pretty penny. And like she's quite beat up, like still got the stickers on it from the video store, which I love.
That's
I do
beautiful.
love the original stickers and stuff like that. So that's part one. And then moving on to part two. So this is part two and part three of the VHSs. I remember when dad would take me grocery shopping and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go grocery shopping. He's like, oh, go look in the VHS store and I'll come grab you when I'm done. I always remember just going straight to the horror section because I'd never seen these. And I'm looking on the back of these covers and I'm like, what in God's name is going on? Like, it's just craziness. Like, some of them are pretty elaborate. Part two is pretty simple. Like, it's just Jesse and then that shot of Freddy as he's melting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so it was part
Beautiful.
two and part three, which is the ones that really stuck out to me. Like, if you went to a friend's house, they usually had this VHS.
Look at that.
Yeah, yeah. So you actually went through this one of this cover when you did your Elm Street 3 physical media.
Uh-huh.
Because yeah, it's such a awesome but like wacky cover at the same time. Like it's so different from the Elm Street 3 poster.
So when you think of Elm Street 3, is that the image that
Yeah.
initially comes to your mind? Like you don't think about the those beautiful posters that that guy created for the United States. Like that's the because that's what you saw
Mm.
growing up.
That
That's
and
just,
also
dude, that's so bizarre to me.
I
That's
know,
just
like, and
crazy.
that's the thing. Like, even the image of Freddy when I was a kid was always that cardboard cutout. You know, the common cardboard cutout where he's standing like that. He's got the glove, and it's the part three look.
Right.
And we had one of them when I was a kid. And we used to scare the shit out of the neighbors whenever they come over. It was great. But that was always what I remembered of Freddy. And then when I saw part one, I'm like, he looks so different and just mean. Like he looks like a jerk in part one compared
Right.
to like how kind of goofy he looked in part three. So here's part four. This isn't the original clamshell. The original clamshell was yellow. So if you do find it with a yellow clamshell on eBay, it goes for a pretty penny. But I found this at a thrift store for $3. And like even without the original clamshell, they go for a good chunk of coin
Right.
on eBay. Like if you've got the whole set, it's a good little investment. And this one, I always remember with part five, turning the VHS over, and I'm like, what is he doing? Like, why is his arm like that? I had questions. My little pea brain just had so many questions, but I still love that it's got the price tag there, the weekly hire, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then
I
finally,
love the image of Freddy with the baby carriage. I don't know if you could see it back there, but that's the video store poster in America, and
I
that's
love it,
always
man.
better to me than the theatrical I like the theatrical poster. I think all the Elm Streets have the most amazing theatrical artwork, but the video store part 5, right, with him and the
Mm,
baby carriage, I love that so much more than the theatrical poster. So it's cool that that
it's
VHS has that too.
yeah, man. I love it. And then last but not least, Freddy's Dead. And this was the first VHS of any of the Elm Streets I bought. This is not the one I bought. The one I bought, I've actually I sliced off the front of the cover and sent it to Robert Anglong. You know, you can send away and he'll sign stuff and send it back. It's actually under my desk here. I have it signed in a little clamshell thing. But yeah, this is the Aussie Freddy's Dead with the Hasta La Vista Freddy on the back, which you touched on too in your Freddy's Dead physical media, which was cool.
There's Alice
Um,
Cooper right there on the back of him too.
yeah. Because I remember reading it, and it's like Alice Cooper is Freddy's dad on the back, and I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Like
That
I hadn't seen all the way through. Like I bought the VHS, hadn't watched the full movie because obviously Dad taped half of it, so I bought it to finish it off. And I'm like, it's pretty interesting. And also, just even though it's not Freddy, I thought you'd dig this. This is the Aussie Hell on Earth Aussie VHS with the holofoil background, which is pretty cool.
So is that Hellraiser? Yeah, okay, I see the 3 now. I was like, is that
Yeah,
Hellraiser
hell on
3?
earth, man. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I remember seeing this in the video store too, because like obviously when you're a kid and you see Hellraiser, you're like, well, that's pretty wild and out there.
Right.
So those are the VHSs, man. And then I've got a couple of vinyls. I'm pretty sure you have these vinyls. So this is the German one, is it not? I think.
Um, I'm not sure. I know that those are very, very expensive. And Chris, let me tell you something, man. Like, that's beautiful. I'll tell you what I've got really quick, and I want to talk about that one you've got right there.
Mm,
I've got Freddy's Dead, which I had to import because America had killed vinyl.
that
But
one.
look how beautiful. Yeah, that's the Metal Blade Records 1991
That,
music from, which if
yes,
it's the music and Chris, I'm going to tell you that is, in my opinion, that is the second best music from the motion picture soundtrack of any horror film ever. Not
I
the best,
agree.
the second best. I'll tell you what the best is. That's the
Yep.
second best.
I agree,
Now,
man. With the Goo Goo Dolls, and then I had Robert sign it when he was at a convention here in Sydney for Chris from DJ Freddy, which is pretty cool.
that's beautiful. Now, Chris, I want to ask you about that vinyl right there. Did you have to get that from the UK or was that pressed in Australia? That because
The this one,
it's the Freddy's Dead specifically. I wanted to ask because
I
that's a really elusive record for Americans to get because in America vinyl had really died out in a mass way right by
mm,
91, but in the UK and other countries they were still some, like there's a couple records I have that were 91 records, Skid Row's Slave to the Grind, or even some 90s stuff that in
mm.
America they never really pressed it. They had gone to cassettes and CDs. So was that? Do you know if that Freddy's Dead was pressed there, or was that also a UK pressing?
No, no, man. I got these from Discogs,
Okay,
the
that's where I got
website
mine.
Discogs. Yeah, so Metal Blade Records for full catalog London. But yeah, this is the Metal Blade one. But I got both of these from Discogs, and now and then I'll get emails from them being like, "Hey, we got Elm Street 3 in stock, Elm Street 4." But I just wanted part 1 and 6. Anything part 1 and 6, I was gonna bring them in, but like they're big. Do you know what day build posters are?
Yeah, the long skinny. Well, they're like this. Yeah, I've
Yes.
got a Net Friday 2 one right there. Yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
I know
So
it's hard to see, but
I've got a part 1 and a part 6 day bill framed out there. I think also because they're smaller, it doesn't cost as much to frame.
right.
So they're not like huge, but I again, just that artwork, man, they're so good. They're so detailed too. So those are my 2 records. I'm just happy with them. But those are the VHSs, and I'm happy that I've got like the main timeline 1 to 6. I do want to get Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason. Like they're pretty cheap. It's more or less the part 1 to Freddy's Dead that usually are a bit rarer and a bit more pricier. Yeah, so it is crazy. Like we're so used to clamshells, and when we see something like this, we're like, oh well, that's so different to what we have.
So what is it? What do you think it is about 1 and 6? Are those your 2 favorites? That's why you kind of go out of your way to collect more things that maybe because I don't know if you're really into vinyl or if you just like to collect things for those movies. Are you into vinyl? Do you do that kind of thing,
I
or is
am,
it?
yeah. So my fiance bought me a record player 2 Christmases ago, which is out there in the living room. So I've also got like the Matrix soundtrack, Oh Brother Where Art Thou. I've got a few others. Like I do like movie soundtracks, like whether it's orchestral or like music from or inspired by
Right.
stuff like that. So yeah, man, like I definitely do like it. There is such like a charming quality about it like when it's digitized, you just can't beat it. And obviously, like you're a record head as well, but obviously I'm nowhere near as much of a record head as you. But if it's something to do with part 1 and part 6, sure. Like any other physical media, promotional stuff, like even lobby cards, I'd definitely want them.
Hmm. Any laser discs? Do you have any of those?
No, and that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about. I love your laser disc segments because I don't collect laser discs. But I got into it through Cinemassacre, the angry video game nerd. You know, James Rolfe.
Hero of mine. Yeah. I think he's
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah, like
hero, right?
his Laserdisc collection video, man. I'm like, I will never own a Laserdisc in my life, but I appreciate how cool these things are. And watching you talk about your Elm Street VHSs, I would buy them just for the cover art, dude. Like when you were showing me, I think it was part five, not showing me, showing on the video, part five. It's beautiful artwork, dude. Like something you'd frame. You know that I would never watch the disc because I don't have a player, but I just frame it because it looks great.
That's what I did. My Japanese
Mm.
part 5 is back there because
Yeah.
it's in a frame because it's a work, dude. The Japanese people, it's like they cover
Mm.
the front and back. The back of them are covered in art. It's
Yeah.
like that they use every bit of real estate to just fill it up with pictures. It's beautiful, you
And
know.
I remember on the Elm Street 1 laser disc, all the special features, including the ADR session with Robert doing the voice, and they're experimenting with voice modulation and echoes with him as Fred, and you can hear like the ADR studio guy, and he's like Fred for reverb, and it's just so cool. And you hear the beep like when he's recording, and like it got lost for a while, and then it showed up on YouTube, and I put it in a video I did on how Wes designed Freddy, and someone's like, "Oh, dude, that's actually from the Laserdisc. That's a special feature." I'm like, I had no idea Laserdiscs even had special features, which
Oh,
shows
not
what I know.
basically, Chris, everything that you know today pretty much started there. Audio
Mm.
commentaries, you would press the audio button the way you would on a Blu-ray, and it would swap the audio track, and you'd hear. Have you seen that super deluxe version Laserdisc of Elm Street 1 that
Is it the
looks like
one how it's got like the red and green stripes
I
on the
gotta
front?
do, yes, I'm gonna do the home video episode on part 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I might even get you to to me, it's really cool when I can have an actual picture of the VHS. So I might bug you again, or I'll just
Yeah,
rip
dude.
this.
Yeah.
I'll rip this from this episode to show that part 1 you had again. But I have that special edition Laserdisc, and I'll open it up and let you see it. Your jaw is going to drop, and you will go out of your way to get it because
Yes.
it's beautiful. There's massive write ups. There's Wes Craven did a write up for the Laserdisc in the gatefold of it, and it's
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
there are special features on that that I'm pretty sure to this day have never seen the light of day again. That being one of
Mm.
them. They never got
Yeah.
re-released. So
Yeah.
yeah, you'd love
Do
that
they
stuff,
like?
man.
Do they go for a pretty penny online if you manage to
Oh,
find one?
without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Especially like I'm lucky. I got into Laserdisc in like 2010, right? So it was
Right.
right before it blew up. Now
Mm.
everything's so damn expensive. VHSs, all that. And then you got to
Yeah.
get the Freddy's Dead Laserdisc because it has those legitimate Freddy's Dead 3D glasses that are branded as
Yes.
Freddy's Dead,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Yep.
Yeah. But
I
that's awesome,
also
man.
I spy a David Miller Creations Baby Freddy from Part 5 behind you. Is that what I think it is?
Yeah, this is my I'm part 5 out today, man.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh,
Yeah. This is my
he's beautiful, man.
so long story short, I it was around 2017 and me and my wife were getting married. And what was going to happen was I found this on eBay. And
Yeah.
my wife found it and she was like,
Mm,
"Christian, cuz I have an undying love for part 5 for a lot of reasons.
mm,
Um I just love that movie, but the soundtrack I love too. The music from the motion picture specifically,
yeah.
Wasp, Bruce Dickinson, great songs in there. But I always love part 5. And when my wife found this, she goes, Christian, this is guy. I didn't know like the guy that worked on the first movie is making this. I was like, yeah, he worked on the 5th movie too. And she goes, well, he's selling baby Freddy's. They're not cheap, but I was like, we were just
Uh,
getting married
yep.
and I was going to come into a little bit of money, not enough to pay for this outright, but I was going to find the money to go up for it.
Mm,
And as soon as I went to go buy it, Chris, he pulled it off of his site because he gets busy, and
uh,
when he's busy for work, he pulls it off.
yep.
2022 or 2021, a year or so ago, all of a sudden, it comes up again on eBay after
Mm.
not that long, but after like 4 or 5 years. I said,
Oh,
I'll
man.
probably never get this chance again. So I got him. and he is my literally my prized possession in my entire collection. And I
He is
got
beautiful.
he is, and oh, you need one, dude. You need one.
Oh, I've thought about it. So I used to own the Part One stunt mask that David Miller used to offer from the mold from Part One, and I also bought a Part One sweater from him back in like 2010. Did you get it off eBay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
on
because he has
eBay.
his eBay store and he sells like hockey masks now and then. And I do want his new Nightmare concept bust of Robert to go with the bio hand.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, man. So that is awesome though, and it's cool to see someone that has like so much love for Part Five because look, I get it. Like it has its critics, myself included sometimes, but like it's
Don't
cool
get
to
it,
see.
hey, Chris. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying it's a great movie. Look, here's it's when you look at it, right? And I'm not saying this really to you. You know these movies frontwards, backwards, sideways.
Mm,
It's just when people binge these movies, especially when they start watching them for the first time, I don't care how good the fifth movie could have possibly been. You are burnt out when you get if you binge the movies, you get to five, you're like, oh man. And then yes, it's they made the movie in 9 freaking months. They
mhm.
didn't give them any damn money, you know. But I love the kills in that film. I think Freddy is
Yeah.
still hysterical. And I think
Mm.
you'll agree with me on this. I don't care whether it's Freddy versus Jason. I don't care whether it's the Dream Child. Robert is always on. He's a
He is.
10 in every movie.
Yeah.
He always is. So, I mean, when you look, I don't know how you feel. To me, there's no question this is the greatest horror franchise to ever walk God's green earth. I
It
love
is because
Halloween, Friday.
yeah,
Nothing is Nightmare on Elm. There will never be another Nightmare on Elm Street.
no, because you have a character that has stood the test of time, that is so different and stands out from the pack of the mutes, the mask wearers, you know, the chainsaw wielders, the butcher knife wielders. You have a such a well-designed character that has such a rich history and mythology, and it's all because of Robert as well. Like you said, he's always on point no matter how terrible the movie is. You can always rely on Robert to give a good performance. Granted, the characterization of him had kind of shifted and shifted a lot by if you're going between part one, five, six. But like he's always on. He's always dialed in. He knows exactly what to do. He knows the character. The character knows him. But it's just such a well assembled character, dude. Like, and that's why I love him. He stands out from the crowd. And he's got a personality. He talks back.
He does. It's just man, it's all. Um, what I wanted to get to next was the Freddy's Dead bus. I do want to look at that again and
Yes,
show the
sir.
audience that, and I want you to really explain how this came to be because this really just blew me away when I found this video, and
Mm.
it's 100%. That's it. That's unmistakably Freddy's Dead.
Yeah, it's it's such a bland looking makeup when you think about it. Like with part five. But yeah, just to reiterate, I came into contact with a life cast of Robert from part four with the eyes shut. I then had a friend of mine sculpt the open eyes, who's a professional sculptor. And Robert has such distinct eyes, like his eye shape is so distinct. And Colin, who sculpted the open eyes, nailed it. I then took it to someone who had a 3D scanner and you know did the scan. And by the time I got home, they'd clean the file up and send it to me. And then I sent that file to someone by the name of Sean Dabbs, who's a 3D designer who digitally sculpted all these burns. I gave him like every bit of reference I had from Freddy's Dead, even like grainy images. He's like, send them all, send them all. And yeah, he came up with this beautiful thing. I had it 3D printed in China by a company called FactFox. So I had it printed in resin as opposed to filament, because with resin you can pick up all that beautiful detail.
Right.
Cleaned it up. You could, you know, clean up some print lines, and then took a silicon mold of him. And this is a resin casting in translucent flesh tinted resin, and then go in and paint him by hand. There's no airbrushing. Like you can use an airbrush, but I like to try and do it all with the shading by hand. And the eyes are made in the States, and the teeth are cast separate and glued in from the underside.
God,
So there you go.
man, look at that. And are you the only person in the world that has this?
As
This
far as
exact
I
kind of
know,
piece, you know what I mean?
yeah, as far as I know, I'm the only person that offers a Freddy's Dead bust at the moment. Like I have seen them come and go. I attempted one back in my early sculpting days, like in 2010. But for something like, this is like a high end collector's piece. This is the only one that's out there at the moment. Could be another, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I would see it somewhere. But yeah, I felt like the Part 6 makeup hadn't got enough love in terms of a display bust. And that's why obviously I've got the glove to go with it as well. But yeah, man, I'm just happy to finally have done that because I've always wanted to do it. Like I got the Part 1 bust and now the Part 6 bust.
God, it's beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you, man.
Wow. Yeah. Like I said, that was the video how I found you. And then it was just it's so bizarre how the world works. You know what
Serendipity,
I mean?
dude. Like fate.
Yeah. Um, you don't have to grab it if it's a problem because we can see it. That new nightmare hand
Yes,
back
of
there
course, man.
is that a
Yeah.
possibility? Because
Yeah. This
that's something
this is
else.
very, very cool, man. You're gonna dig this. So
Golly.
this what you see here is a resin casting from a friend of mine called Peyton Patron, who's in the States. This is a second generation casting, and he came into contact with a first generation casting from Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So these were essentially used to gift cast and crew from the film. But the cool thing is, it's derived from the molds used to create the wearable bone claw that Robert wore. So everything you see here is screen accurate. Obviously it was a blank casting, so it was that color on the inside. It was pure white, and I've got a video up on my channel. I put it up, I think, last month of me painting this up.
I watched
A
that.
friend of
Great
mine,
video,
pardon?
by the way. I said
Oh,
great
thank you,
video,
man.
by the way. I saw that.
Thank you, thank you. So, a friend of mine who goes by the name of Phil has completed one of these with the blades that were screen used, supposedly. So I contacted Phil and I go, could I get some measurements? He goes, yeah, man. So I think it was like 5 and 5/8 inches for all the blades, which is great. I managed to get a side on profile, print it out, and scale it. So the blades aren't secured in place. They kind of just lock in. And this is just perspex that I've chromed. So just for a bit of safety. And, if one day down the track I sell it, I can take the blades out, easy transportation. And with the veins on the screen used gloves were transparent. They weren't a solid red. So I had to specially spray. What you see here is a fuel line for nitro fuel in RC cars that was transparent. So I found that and sprayed it red. And then all this is done by hand, no airbrushing. This is the original color of the casting. It's just been stained with brown shoe polish. So like I said, shoe polish, man, can work wonders. So all the bone elements are stained with shoe polish.
That is
Um,
magnificent.
thank you, man. It's such a cool design. Like I said in my video, it's not my favorite design, but it's just so unique and badass, man. Like I just love it. It's just awesome.
Golly. Yeah, that's something else. Can I get your thoughts on New Nightmare? Because,
Hmm.
I feel like there are certain types of Elm Street fans, right? I think that there
Yeah.
is a certain group that sees 1, 3, and New Nightmare as top tier Elm Streets, and then there's another group that sees 2, 4, and 5. Like there's different clans of Elm Street fans. I feel there's 1, 3, and New Nightmare fans.
Yep.
There's 2, 4, 5. There's Freddy's Dead fans, and then there's remake fans. I want to talk to you about that. But give me your thoughts on New Nightmare because I have so much respect for that movie.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
always feel when I watch New Nightmare, it's a little slow. But I have so much respect for it. So it's like I love it, but there's a chunk in once you have the scene with Wes Craven where he
Mhm.
talks to Heather, after that, boom, I feel like the movie revs up. I mean, what are your thoughts on that film?
So I first watched New Nightmare when I was 13. Um, I didn't get it. I'm like, what? Because I had no idea about the premise. I always remember seeing the VHS when I was a kid, and I'm like, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I'm like,
What
that's
the hell is
Freddy,
this? Yeah.
but it's not Freddy. Like, I don't know what's going on. I try and read the synopsis on the back, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm just going to go back to looking at part one and part two. And then I finally watched Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I'm like, what? Heather, what? Why is Robert? Well, and that's because my brain didn't know what meta was or self aware. And then I watched it later on and subsequently, last couple of years, and I love it. I think it was so ahead of its time. And obviously, like everyone says, and Wes said, it was the precursor for Scream with that
Hmm.
meta, self aware idea of the film. I'm not the biggest fan of the look of Freddy. And I've said this many a times, keep that look, but dirty him down. Like have like the sweater hanging off in tatters and just I don't like the leather pants and the boots. It's like it's just weird. Like it's just very otherworldly. But also West kind of wanted to tap into that original concept he had of Fred, the old drunk walking down the street with the trench coat and the hat and scaring Wes and his little brother when he was walking past their apartment.
Right.
But I do love it, man. I do get what you mean when it's slow. So when I was working on this, I put it on. I just had it in the background while I was painting. So I'm like, I haven't watched it in a while. I'm working on this. Let me just watch it. And I was watching, I'm like you said, I'm like, this drags a bit. Like it's got so much going for it. There's some stuff I would do different, but it had like it could have been so good, but it's still pretty good. But like you said, right before Heather goes to see Wes, it's a bit of a tough slog. Like Freddy comes and goes, but I feel like he could have been used a bit more. Like there wasn't enough Freddy. Like I
Hmm.
get it, he's teased throughout the beginning, the first act, the second act, and then shit gets going after Heather goes to see Wes. But again, man, like if a few things had been changed, the look, can you imagine how cool it would have been if they brought back the original part one look of Fred in New Nightmare? If it's the demon entity, but looking like part one. Because
And it uses the way to almost not tease Heather, but to almost like as like a joke to her, or to like throw it back in her face, like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, oh,
yeah,
dude. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Like some people always say, or I'm guilty of. I was like, how come there wasn't one where Robert faces the entity
yeah,
himself in the movie? And that never happens. I think it's time, money, and budget. We gotta remember it was New Line Cinema, those cheap bastards.
yeah,
So
dude,
you
yeah.
know,
Like this is the early 90s, man. They were still like trying to figure their stuff out. They were a well established company, but not like because apparently, like the documentary Never Sleep Again. In the deleted scenes, Robert talks about they had originally written a scene where Robert Englund falls asleep and he's cocooned in this giant spider web, and a big Black Widow Freddy spider comes along, and it's the new Nightmare Freddy. But then they also shot scenes where Robert leaves town and Heather tries to get in contact with him, but like we saw, like he's painting on the phone to Heather, and then he just disappears. He just skips
and that's
town.
it. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
But as
interesting.
for the remake, oh man, it's kind of like the black sheep of the family. Jackie Earl Haley did fine as Freddy, given what he was given. I think his performance is severely restricted with that makeup. And I get it. They're going for like grounded in reality, like a real burn victim. But if you look at the skin on burn victims, it restricts movement and it's awful. But you also restrict an actor's performance when you're going hyper realistic. Whereas Robert, who's a trained thespian and has to essentially project his facial expressions because he's so used to being on stage, he was able to act the shit out of that makeup. And like he even said, utilizing his little beady eyes, especially in that part one makeup where he's dimly lit, but you just see these two beady eyes and all the wetness of the makeup. And then you got Jackie O'Haley, who tried to do something a little bit different, have a different swagger, different posture, but his facial expressions are just restricted. And it's just it seems like a cheaper carbon copy of the first one with some bad CGI compared to the practical effects of the first one that still hold up, like the
It's amazing.
spandex, the spandex of Freddy coming through the wall. and they swapped that out for CGI in the 2010 remake, and it just
It's
looks
like crap.
awful, man.
$100 piece of plastic or that spandex they threw at the wall looks better than, you know. I
What are your thoughts, man? Where does the remake lie for you?
at the very bottom.
Yeah, yeah,
At the absolute very bottom.
yeah,
Um it's just the whole I don't know, dude. The whole thing just feels so computer generated. There was a
mm,
moment where they were gonna make Freddy innocent, and I was like, "Oh, there's
yeah,
something." And then they didn't
mm,
do it. Like he
yeah,
was innocent. And and
yeah,
maybe he bargained with the devil. "Hey guys, I will
mm,
let you get revenge if you give me your soul." And I was like, "There's something. I can grab a
yeah.
hold of that." But then they backpedaled and no, he was a pedo. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, look,
I didn't like that. That made me feel like dirty watching it. And I know they sidestepped it in the first one because there was apparently a situation going on at a school in the States where that was happening to children from the teachers. And Wes was like, let's just call him a child killer. Like, let's just forget that. But they really
yeah,
committed to it in the 2010 one. And you're like, oh, like we're supposed to be like Freddy's like kind of like, Freddy, Freddy, but you don't want to do that with the
yeah.
2010 one. You're like, this guy's evil. Like that's awful.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's which makes me wonder, there are moments, I don't know how you feel, Chris. There are legitimate days where I'm like, I gotta get one more Elm Street film. And then there are other
Really?
days where I say, there will never be another Robert Englund. There will never be another A Nightmare on Elm Street. Put a bow on it. Never make another one. Never touch it again. There are days, and like honestly, today's one of those days where I say, never touch Elm Street again. I
Yeah.
have those moments. How do you feel about
Yeah.
that?
I'm the same dude, and obviously, like you're probably aware the Craven estate is currently taking pictures for whether it be a series or a movie. And I know Elijah Wood's production company is keen to. They've been, I think, having a back and forth because he's keen to do something. But I actually did a video, I think 2 years ago, on my pitch for a direct sequel to the first one. 'Cause like that's the thing at the moment, a direct sequel to Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween. My direct pitch was my pitch for a direct sequel to the first one. Nancy. Can you imagine if they got Johnny Depp back as Glenn and they're married, they have kids, and 1428 is abandoned, boarded up. Lieutenant Thompson is still like an alcoholic, just doesn't know how to grieve with the loss of Marge and just what has happened. And he ultimately takes himself into 1428, because it's all boarded up, abandoned. He sneaks in and subsequently takes his own life. And that fear from that within Nancy churns up Freddy again, and then Freddy goes after Nancy and Glenn's kids. But this is like part one Freddy, but he's just old, withered, decrepit, and slowly coming back. That was my pitch. If the whole direct sequel thing was ever a thing, or even a direct sequel to part three, dude, like, Christ, you could have so much fun with it. But to your point, there are days when I'm like, I'm happy with what we've got, even though it's not a perfect series. If someone was like, there's never going to be an Elm Street ever again, I'm like, fine. Look at what we got here. This is fine. I'm happy with that. But if it meant Robert had one more in him, sure. I kind of got a bit sad when I saw him on the Goldbergs. I don't know how you feel, but I was like, oh man, like he looks different. And I never ever want to have a go at someone's physical appearance, because we're all different. But it definitely looked very jarringly different to how he looked as Freddy of old,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
I mean, sure. I mean, yeah, well, he's what? He's like 75 now. He was probably 71, 69 when he did that. He's a little,
Yeah.
he Robert was always in really good shape back
Well,
then.
he's a surfer, and that's why he was always abnormally broad shouldered. Like he's my height, he's 5'9", but he's always very wide because he's a surfer. He's always using his upper body. But yeah, he's always been in shape, man. He's always been a lean guy.
The thing I heard for the longest time, I say for the longest time, was there was going to be an Elm Street film where Robert was going to play Freddy, but they were going to, I don't know if it was going to be a suit, a green suit he wore or something, but they were
Oh
going to
no.
digitally put his makeup on
Oh
because of
no.
his age. And I had the
Yeah.
same reaction. Um, that's why I say, I'll tell you what I really want. And I don't know how you are with this. I don't know what the holdup is. The fact that I don't have these movies on 4K really, it keeps me up at night. It really does. And it's bullshit because I don't know. There was the company Scream Factory. I
Hmm.
have friends. I don't know if you watch YouTubers that are into the physical media world, but I have some YouTubers that I talk to that know people that legitimately worked for the companies that go out and are hired by Scream Factory to do stuff. I
Mm.
was told they were filming interviews. They booked hotels because that's where they film a lot of these interviews. They'll get hotel rooms and set up. They had booked actors from the series and were doing interviews. And then all of a sudden, Scream Factory said, "Stop. It's over. Stop."
You did a video on this, didn't you? It
I did a couple videos on this and I was
was one of the
pissed.
first videos I ever watched of you. It got recommended to me, and my eyes lit up because in the title, my eyes darted, and it was like Elm Street 4K Scream Factory. I'm like, oh, it's happening. And then what you just said, they just said stop. Yeah.
I went through a whole. Is that the video you saw where I had the board and I was
I
like,
think
I
so. Yes.
I went through an entire box set of what we needed. I went through everything. But yeah, dude, that's what really gets me is the fact that, these movies are so beautiful and the music
Mm,
is and the fact that we can't see them in the best picture quality possible is just bullshit. And I don't know
mm,
if this is a Craven Estate thing or not, because I don't know why they have ownership would have ownership over the physical release of these movies. I don't know that side of the business. I don't
mm,
know if it's Warner Brothers. I don't, because I know they absorbed New Line. I don't know who it is, but it's ridiculous. Friday the 13th, Chris, has constantly had battles with Sean and Victor in the middle of a
mm,
giant lawsuit. They released a box set from Scream Factory, 4K scans of the first four
mm.
movies, the entire collection again. New Line, Paramount, they got it in the middle of a goddamn lawsuit. I got this
Yep.
brand new box set. Nightmare on Elm Street has not had a good box set since 1999, and that is
No, man,
bullshit.
and that's what I love. Whenever you do your physical media, you always go back to that box set, the one where it's just the simple black slip cases with the nice artwork.
Yep.
I don't get it, dude. Like Christ, like you think Elm Street would be the first cab off the 4K rank? Because the Friday the 13th one you're talking about is the bluish box set with all that beautiful artwork.
That's Scream Factory that did that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Gotcha.
And so, and it's a mystery. I wish Scream Factory would just be um open to the public and saying, "Hey, of course we're trying to put out an Elm Street box set. We like money. Here's why we can't right now. We cannot get the license from X, Y, or Z to do it. We can't come to terms because what really sucks is not knowing what the hell
Yeah.
is going on. It
Yeah.
just kills
Yeah.
me. It kills
I
me.
agree, man. That's with anything. As long as you keep people updated or be transparent, that's fine. Like there's one of those things where you're like, oh, it's out of our hands. But if there's just radio silence, that's even worse. Like, tell me this: do you think it will happen like soon? Like what?
Well,
Like
Chris, I'll tell you this. Next year's the 40th anniversary of the original film. If we
yes,
don't get something next year, hang it up, shut the doors. We're not getting a damn thing. Because if we're
yeah,
not going to get something on the 40th anniversary, we're done.
mm,
Or if a new movie got announced or a new movie came out, then that's what happens, right? When the Poltergeist remake came out, what did they do? They flooded the shelves with the original movies on DVD and Blu-ray that's what they do. That's the way that stuff works. But if we don't get something on the 40th, dude, it's shut it down. We're done.
they'd be
We're never gonna
stupid
get nothing.
not to. Surely they got something brewing right now because that's like a gold mine right there for them, the 40th anniversary, and I'd be one of those people that would throw all my money at it because yes,
Of
40th
course.
anniversary of one of my favorite horror series.
And there's so much I mean, you can I mean for people to be able to see part 5 uncut again, which I don't know
Yes,
if your
exactly.
VHS is uncut. Is that VHS uncut?
I don't believe. Oh wait, hang on. Contains extra footage not seen in Australian cinemas.
That's the uncut version. And listen,
There you
Chris,
go.
I tell people all the time, if you watch Dream Child Uncut, it'll go up a full star rating. It is
Mhm.
brutal with Dan when he gets those things
Yes.
that go into his calves.
Yeah.
That's tough, dude. That's one of the greatest, most insane death sequences in the entire series. Like, what the hell is that? He
It
turns
is
into
pretty
a
gnarly,
rope.
man.
He turns into a part of his motorcycle. Like, what is that? I love it, dude. It's amazing.
And
And then
also,
Baby Freddy, it's great.
Greta's kill. Greta's kill.
Yeah, where he starts feeding her stomach.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, Chris. I mean, it's great to talk about this series with a big fan, man. And I
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
go back really quick to Freddy's Dead. I don't know, and if you haven't seen the show or not, forgive me, but like I feel like there's such this misunderstanding with Freddy's Dead because when Rachel Talalay
Mm.
describes the early 90s, for people that haven't ever that don't know much about David Lynch or have never seen
Mm.
Twin Peaks, I don't think they truly understand how that show really influenced the world during that time. And it's so
Yeah.
ever present. That quirkiness
Yeah.
is so in Freddy's Dead that Twin
Mm.
Peaks has, and it gave me such an even bigger appreciation. The zaniness, it's
Yeah.
like if like the sequence where they show up to the town fair where Roseanne is at, that is so David Lynch. It's not even
Yeah.
funny.
Mm.
And so like that gave me this completely new appreciation for the movie. And I don't know that it's misunderstood per se. I just think
Mm.
how can you not love a movie like Freddy's Dead that is so unique in its approach? I mean, dude, it if you cannot criticize Freddy's Dead and saying, "Oh, dude, it's not even scary." Of course, it's not scary. They were making a Twin Peaks Freddy's Dead movie. That's what it is, and it's zany, it's quirky, and dude, I'm just so glad that you love it. It's
Oh
always,
man,
you
I
know,
think, and that's what Rachel Talalay said. Like Twin Peaks was a big influence. That quirky kind of even John Hughes era, even though they're in the '90s now, and John Hughes was like pretty big in the '80s. It's so different from the others, and just I think that's why I just love the each end of the spectrum thing from part one to part six. But even Robert said in Never Sleep Again, he's like, I think at that point, all we did was self destruct and just deconstruct the whole thing. He's like, we jumped the shark. It was a Roadrunner cartoon, like Bugs Bunny, and like when he's rolling out the bed of spikes, and he's like,
he's huffing
he's
and
breaking the
puffing.
fourth wall, looking at the camera. I'm like, oh my god, this is. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm actually right in the middle of writing a script for like a mini doco on Freddy's Dead, just like looking back on it, like a retrospective. And if you go into Freddy's Dead like you would The Room, the film The Room,
The Room. I know where you're going with
or
this.
Samurai Cop,
That's a
and
great movie, by the way. I love
oh god,
Samurai Cop so much.
Samurai Cop is beautiful. I absolutely love Samurai Cop. If you go into Freddy's Dead knowing it's going to be something similar to that, you're going to have a good time. If you don't, if you're expecting part one, you're going to have an awful time. But like the cameos, like they got Johnny Depp back, Roseanne Barr, Tom Arnold, Alice Cooper, just the soundtrack as well. The Goo Goo Dolls at the
Amazing.
very beginning when the New Line Cinema logo comes up, and when Freddy's Dead, the logo comes up and all the letters are in your
Choo choo
face,
choo
and
choo choo choo. Oh, dude,
yeah, it's so
it's
cool. And
money.
like, I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul too. And I'm like, this is great. This is so stupid. It's so bad. It's good.
Now
Um,
this is what you need, Chris. I need you to get an original, You need to have in that beautiful room you've got. You have got to have some kind of original Freddy's Dead poster in that
Yes.
room. You need it.
Yes.
Like that's a video store poster from '91 over there. That's and dude, it's that is the best Elm Street poster to me. That
I
Freddy's
do
Dead,
love the
that
Freddy's Dead one.
beautiful red. It's so vibrant.
So I've got the original day bill from 91. So I'm like, I'm happy with that.
That's right.
And
You
like I
do
said,
have that. You do have that.
yeah. So I don't obviously have the theatrical one, but the day bill's fine, man. Like I said, they're small enough where it doesn't cost as much to frame, but like they don't take up too much wall real estate either. But like, that's what I like the glove. I love the glove from Freddy's Dead. It's just so chunky and gnarly and
I love that.
disgusting. So this was made by Jameson Knapp of Dark Dream Design. And the cool thing is it's mounted on an original vintage Wells Lamont 1178, which is what they used for 4, 5, and 6.
Now, what do you have in there to hold the shape of the glove? Is that some kind of like?
Remember, those wooden hands you can get from IKEA?
Yes. Oh, that's what that is?
So, yeah, it's just that, but I took the fingers off and it's like foam with a wire in it, so you can like bend the fingers and kind of just play with it a bit and do different poses. So yeah, man, and that's why I've got a part 1 glove which is currently at my mum and dad's place on a life-size part 1 statue. We don't have the room here at the moment, so I'm currently awaiting a part 2 glove, and I've got my part 4 here as well. It's also mounted on a vintage Wells.
Yeah.
Part 4 glove is so cool, man. I love it. It's a little beast.
That is beautiful.
So, yeah, I'm slowly trying to just have the whole lineup of gloves, man, because it's so cool to see the evolution of them, where the part 1 is so smooth, sleek, and simple. Then you get to 6, and you need a tetanus shot just looking at it, like it's just
You're right. Hey, check this out. Let me
dude,
I just got
sick.
this. Yeah.
Did you post that on Instagram?
I did.
Oh man, that's so cool.
There's it's real needles. There's actual fluid in there. And they light up.
Where did you get that?
Funny story. So in America, NECA just released this really thick latex Halloween 2 mask.
Yep.
And it retailed for $60, and they showed up in our Walmarts. I grabbed it just like because I was like, they only made like 400 or 500 of them. So to find one, it was going to be a little difficult. I just bought it. To be honest with you, I didn't think it looked that great. But there was this guy that reached out to me. He was like, dude, I know. He was even honest. He goes, look, I'm a big Halloween fan. I collect this stuff. I'm a junkie for it. I need that thing. Can you please try to find me one? I'm in California. They're all gone. I can't find it. And then he showed me his collection. And he was like, I don't know if you want to trade something, you can kind of have a look if it's something you might want. He puts the camera over this thing. I said, stop. I want that. And he was like, well, I paid a lot of money for this. And I was like, I'll sweeten the pot. So I love Puppet Master. I had an extra torch Puppet Master replica. I threw that in. And so I got this bad boy. And so I loved it. So I only have 2 gloves. I've got this, and I've got, I guess it's pretty much like a part 1 hand, but it's not totally screen accurate. This was 11 years ago. So you just got what you could back then. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when I got the opportunity to get this, I was like, oh my God. So I'm so glad I bought that Michael Myers mask, because this never would have happened if I wouldn't have done that. So
that's so cool. And that's like such a niche glove, so to speak. Like even though you see it for like a couple of seconds in the film, it's such a
you
cool
never
concept.
Forget it. Yeah.
No, you
never
don't
forget
at
it.
all, man. Like,
you know what I want? You know what I want, Chris? I want the Freddy glove with the spoon.
Oh, the spoon glove. Yeah.
I really see. This is the thing, dude. So I've got the 2 busts there. That's my part 2. And that's a hybrid kind of look between 3 or 4. It's kind of a hybrid look. It's not totally screen accurate. It's great. But I want a part 5 Freddy wearing the chef's top with the little. I need that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or I want a Freddy's Dead with the bus driver hat.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine that?
With the
Dude,
bus play set and John Doe on the front.
you could even dress up your Freddy like that, dude.
I
If you could
could.
somehow, get the
Yeah.
dude, oh my God. How
Bus
sick.
driver Freddy.
Those are my favorite moments when he's got the
Yeah.
costumes on, Or where's the
Yeah.
bourbon, Freddy? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, man. Do you have the little figure of Chef Freddy you can get?
Yeah, I've got all those
Okay,
NECAs.
cool.
Yeah, I've got those. I've got those. Um, there's some stuff I don't know if you're into it. Like, I did a couple videos on it. It was called the Max FX Freddy, and it was this little weird toy.
Yes.
Um,
Is that where you
it was
dress Max up?
Yeah, there's the box for it right there. It's still in the box right there. But I did
I
a video
remember.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, long story short, that's fascinating, right? Because this guy created the concept for this, sold it to this toy company. They put out that talking Freddy doll. The parents went crazy. They're like,
Mm.
this is a child killer. You're marketing this for kids. And that toy line, they were going to have an alien, a Frankenstein. They were eventually going to do a Jason Voorhees, and it was really cool. And it was going to be for kids to like. Kids were going to see, oh, it's acting. So you make the
Mm.
guy pretend to be Freddy. That's not really Freddy. It was this cool thing, but they only put out the Freddy and they barely sold. So all those things got shipped to warehouses and they eventually started selling online and some people bought them. And so, yeah, that's something cool you ought to look at, man. You could probably get them not too expensive either.
You can get them,
So
man. I was looking at that talking Freddy, funnily enough, on eBay last month. Even with a beat up box, some of them go for a monster. But I did see some of the Max ones. I'm also after. Remember the McFarlane toy of Freddy and Jason in the fish tank?
yeah, I got that.
Yeah, dude. I remember seeing that when Movie Maniacs first came out, and my little mind was blown because I'm like, they make figures of Freddy. Like, I didn't even know about the talking doll. I just remember seeing series one of Movie Maniacs with Freddy and Jason, and Freddy came with the little puppet from part three. I'm like,
Dude, it's
this is
so
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's yeah. I mean, I don't know if you it's kind of hard to say. I don't want to get up and make this about me, but like up there on my shelf, like it's right under the Freddy's Greatest Hits vinyl. Right there
Oh,
is the
yes,
fish.
yes, I see it. I see
That's
it.
the
Yep.
yeah, that's the fish tank, you know?
Oh
So,
man. Yeah.
yeah,
See, look, they're not even that badly priced either on eBay, and they've still got like the original factory seal. So I'd
right.
love it, man. Just again, like I'm a nostalgia nerd, like unapologetically. Like it just makes me happy.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Hey, I see right behind you. We need to wrap this up because we're over an hour. I want to say thank you so much for your time. Do,
Of course,
on it,
man. Thank
I
you for having
see.
me.
I see your YouTube silver
Oh
play button
yes.
back there, dude. How
Yes.
how how did that feel to get that? I mean, did you say to yourself, Jesus Christ, like I pulled this off? You know what I
Yeah, look,
mean?
it's a tough slug, man. Like I'm all for transparency. My channel like is definitely taken a bit of a has slowed down a bit in the recently as opposed to like 2016, 17, 18. And I think that's why I started a new channel. You got to kind of be aware of it and be like, okay, what can I do next? But I never thought I'd get to 100,000 subscribers, man, and I finally did. And yeah, I got that. And it's crazy. Like you you never it's hard to envision because like it is a tough slug, dude. Like when you got to come up with content, but you also want to, you got to stay true to yourself. You got to talk about what you love. Otherwise, people are going to be like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Granted, I've done videos like that before where I've given something a shot. And I'm like, don't do that ever again. But that's why you got to experiment. But it's so cool. You have such a cool niche on your channel because physical media, no matter how many streaming services there are, will always have a place. And there's always going to be people that want to watch these collection videos and be like, that's cool. If they're trying to catalog stuff or reference stuff and be like, oh, did you watch Christian's video? That's actually, the Malaysian one or X, Y, and Z. People love that, dude. So kudos to you. Like, keep going. It seems like you, like I said, have tapped into something that's just niche, but there's a big community for it. It's nostalgia, it's horror, it's physical media. Like you've got this big umbrella with all these just really great topics to talk about. So kudos to you, man. It's awesome. I really do love what you do, because also you're like a guy I could just hang out with. Like I'll like sometimes when I'm driving, I'll just have you playing in the car, and it's just like having a mate there, and I'm just like, oh, like even though I can't see what's going on because I got to keep my eyes on the road, it's just cool. Like especially when you talk about Freddy's Dead or Part 5, and you're just like, you guys, like it's just the best. It's just you don't have to explain yourself. You're like, I don't have to fucking explain myself. I love it. That's all that matters. Like, who cares? That's what I
Dude,
love.
and dude, it really means the world for you to tell me that, because, you know, you just put these videos out, right? You don't know who the hell is watching them.
No,
You
you
know,
don't.
you see a number on a screen, right? Okay, I got X amount of views. So, like I said, dude, when you reached out to me, like it really is, it's really humbling, you know, for somebody that's so is not only as busy as you, but as prolific and as prominent as the stuff that you've done. I mean, you're hanging out with the cast of Evil Dead Rise and everything. I'm like, this guy's watching some jackass in Louisiana talking about VHS tapes of The Dream Child. It's just crazy
Yeah,
to
dude,
me,
buddy.
you
Yeah.
know?
Look, I like you. I'm the kid from Oyster Bay here in Sydney, in Australia. Like it's like we're just dudes, but we're just hyper passionate about it, and it's awesome. Like I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, no, I really do appreciate you having me on, man. It was really cool. Like I'm like a little bit like, wouldn't say starstruck, but it's like cool because I've listened to you for so long. So it's like it's just cool just to have a one-on-one. It's exactly how I thought it would be. I'm like, this is probably going to be one of the best conversations I've had in a long time, and it has been. So thank you.
Dude. Now I gotta tell you, thank you. I want to tell you this right now. You need to get, if you don't have it, the Dream Master music from the motion picture soundtrack on vinyl.
Okay.
You need it. That, I don't know how familiar you are with it. Of course you have to be, because you've watched the movie, I'm sure, 74 times. That is
Like
the
with
number.
Tuesday night at the beginning, yeah.
Well, that, and see, that song is not even on the vinyl.
Oh,
It's not
what?
on
Why?
there. It just wasn't, because it was
Ah,
probably picked very last minute to be in the movie, and by that point, Chrysalis had already been pressing those records. That
okay.
is the number one, in my opinion, of course, the number one horror movie music from the motion picture soundtrack in history. In
That's your number one, and
history.
Freddy's Dead your number two.
Number 2. And that, look, there are other movies, like 3 would be, I mean, look, there's The Lost Boys has amazing soundtrack. Fright Night has a criminally underrated music from the motion picture soundtrack. Autograph, there are great bands on that record. But
Mm,
Nightmare 4 has the best, because
yeah,
you get everything. You get AOR rock from Go West. Don't Be
yeah.
Afraid of Your Dreams is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. The Divinals, you get Sea Hags, Vinnie Vincent
Everything.
Invasion. So you get that hair metal, but it's such a beautiful, that record. There are so many different genres, Chris, but if you listen
Mm,
to it top to bottom, it magically flows perfectly. It swaps through all these different genres of rock, new wave, a little bit of punk even, and
mm,
it's beautiful. It plays top to bottom so beautifully. I challenge anybody to go
hmm.
listen to that soundtrack. Dramarama, anything. When he's karate in the bag before the dad
Yeah,
comes home,
yes.
I'm telling you, dude, you need to get this on vinyl and just play it while you're working. It is the number one music from the motion picture soundtrack on the planet. I put it up against anything.
I'll take you
So,
up on that, man. Yeah, for sure. Like, until that, if I do get the vinyl, I'm assuming the playlist is on like
oh,
YouTube or
you can go on YouTube and literally just type in Nightmare 4 soundtrack, and there's people that have the whole CD uploaded top to bottom.
hell yeah, perfect. Perfect. Yeah, definitely. Because I need new stuff to listen to at the moment now that because I work out in the kitchen now and then when I'm painting or casting up stuff. So yeah, dude, absolutely. Like I never even thought it's always been like part 1 and 6. I never even thought to think to listen to the part 4 soundtrack. So cool. I'm
People,
sold.
because people talk about Dream Warriors, Dream Warriors, Dream Warriors,
Yeah.
Dream Warriors. That is a song. I'm
Mm,
talking about a body of work. Nothing will ever top part 4. And Don't Be Afraid of Your Dreams by Go West. Dude, this song, it's gonna hypnotize you. It is so
Hmm.
beautiful, but it's sad and happy at the same time. It's one of those magical songs that if you're sad, it'll make you feel happy. If you're happy, it makes you feel sad. It's the most beautiful song in the world. You're gonna
I love
fucking
it.
love it. I'm telling you.
Yes.
So,
Okay. Cool. Cool.
dude,
You've sold
this
me.
so thank you so much. I really hope the audience enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for showing us your collection, the pieces in your collection. Again, dude, I'm humbled that you reached out to me. And these are the moments right here that I'm so glad I do YouTube. Not subscribers, not views, but like meeting people like you. Like I'm from Louisiana, you're in Australia, for God's sakes. This is amazing to me, you
Bloody
know.
technology, mate. Who'd have thought?
So for all the people listening to this right now, thank you. Thank you for taking this journey with us, and keep Elm Street alive, please. There's nothing like it. Take all that Halloween crap, get it out of here. It's all, no, I'm kidding. But seriously, guys, Nightmare on Elm Street, the greatest horror franchise ever. Me and Chris are proof of it. Okay, we're proof of
That's
it.
it. Proof of it, man. Thank you for having me, man, and thank you for everyone for putting up with my nonsense.
Thank you, guys.